Okay, let's go ahead and resume our discussion on section 1.4. We're going to be talking about another property that's useful in multiplication and addition and subtraction, and it's called the associative property. The associative property, what that deals with is, let's think of the word associate, right? That if it looks very similar to the word associative. So what this tells us is we can associate certain numbers together or group certain things together, and it will still equal the same exact thing. This is a pretty useful tool when you're dealing with multiplication and addition subtraction, especially when you get into more complex problems. So what we like to do using the associative property is we see in this first problem we have three terms, the 3, the 8, and the x. Remember that terms are divided based on the placement of your addition sign or subtraction sign. In this case, there's two addition signs, so there must be 3 terms. So what we want to do is we want to use the associative properties to go ahead and make this a little bit easier to solve. And when we do the associative property, many times what we like to do is just change the location of these parentheses. So we see the parentheses are around the 8 and the x. Using the associative property, we can change the location of those parentheses to do this. 3 plus 8 plus x. Now these still equal the exact same thing, but using the associative property helps put it into a more clear definition. That way we know we have to specifically add the 3 and the 8. So if we go to combine 3 and 8, 3 plus 8 is 11, and we get 11 plus x. And that's all there is to the addition. And of course subtraction is the exact same thing as addition. When we have multiplication, you see in this case we have the 4x in parentheses. Well, what we want to do again is just change the location of the parentheses, and we see the two numbers that we have over here are going to be the 8 and the 4. The x is the variable. We know that we can multiply 8 times 4 pretty easy, so let's use the associative property to change the location of those parentheses again. 8 times 4 parentheses, and then x on the outside now. So the associative property allows us to do that. Now we can go ahead and compute 8 times 4, which is 32, and we still have the x there, so 32x. And that's all it is for associative properties. Now we're going to go and combine the two, and use the commutative and associative properties to simplify. So this is a pretty simple example, but if you really understand the concept, you can apply it to very complex problems. In this case, we see we have 7 plus x plus 2. The first thing we'll probably want to do is change this around so that we get we can use the commutative property so we get the two numbers right next to each other. So the first thing I'll probably do is say 7 plus parentheses 2 plus x. Now these still equal the exact same thing. I just use the commutative property to change the location of the two values inside the parentheses. Now we can go ahead and apply the associative property to change the location of our parentheses. And I want to bound the two values that are numbers, not variables, but are numbers in the parentheses so I can compute. So we got 7 plus 2 inside parentheses plus x. And now we can go and combine what's inside the parentheses. We know 7 plus 2 is equal to 9 plus x. And these are our answers. Of course, I forgot to identify the answers in the last problem, but it looked like it was pretty straightforward there. Examples 6 and 7, these cover using distributive property. Distributive property applies whenever we have a number or a variable outside of parentheses with no plus sign in between. See the difference here? We have 7 plus. Here we just have it 6, and when it's right next to the parentheses, it means a times. So what this means is we have to multiply 6 times everything inside this parentheses. So let's go ahead and use the distributive property to go ahead and figure this one out. We have to do 6 times x, which is just 6x, plus, there's a plus right there, 6 times 4, which is 24. So we have essentially distributed that 6 to every term inside the parentheses. That's all they won't need us to do. So this is our answer. 6x plus 24. On this side, the same thing. We see there's no plus or minus between the number and the parentheses. So that means we need to distribute. So let's go ahead and distribute to everything inside the parentheses. 5 times x is just 5x. Plus, we have a plus sign in between the x and the 3. 5 times 3 is 15. And there we go. That's all there is to distributive and associative properties. Go ahead and work on some problems in the book, and come back and look at the last video. Good luck.